So I recently watched Severance and was thinking about how attached I and others are to it. It's been a while since I felt this way about a show that wasn't super flashy or high-paced. It got me thinking about how TV used to create these shared experiences. Weekly episodes of Friends, Buffy, or Lost that gave us time to process, theorize, and grow attached to characters. People used to gather for a season finale or spend the week between episodes discussing theories. But today, we're in the era of the binge model. Full seasons dropping at once, consumed in a weekend and forgotten by Monday. We get burnout, there's no time for emotional processing, no space for anticipation or attachment to grow. We're just racing to avoid spoilers. Meanwhile, video games have long been doing something different. I think it comes down to a few things. Games make us participants instead of observers. They make us responsible for outcomes. They let us experience characters' inner thoughts. And they demand time investment that mirrors real human connections. Because TV shows me someone else's tears, but games make me responsible for them. In interactive storytelling, responsibility for the narrative trickles down from the character to the player. Whether it is the dice roll determined decisions of Baldur's Gate 3 or wrestling with Life is Strange's time manipulation powers, games put you in the driver's seat of difficult choices with rarely perfect outcomes. Usually just satisfaction or crushing guilt that stays with you long after you've put the controller down. When you play Baldur's Gate 3, every choice carries weight. Not just narrative weight, but literal weight determined by the roll of dice. Your party members react to your decisions with approval or disgust. They remember what you've done. Sometimes they leave you. Sometimes they die because of your choices. And it feels like those choices really do have a meaningful impact on the story. You're not just the hero, you're also the dungeon master shaping the story as you go. In Life is Strange, the rewind mechanic initially feels like a superpower, a way to take back mistakes and get perfect outcomes. But it quickly becomes a burden. Max's nosebleeds worsen with each rewind, the ripple effects of the changed decisions grow more unpredictable, and ultimately you reach a devastating final choice of saving your best friend or saving an entire town. Watching TV shows, you can jump ahead to resolve a cliffhanger. The funny thing is, games also let you skip things, but it's the cutscenes we actually want to see that can be skipped. It's all the in-between stuff, the difficult trek across dangerous terrain, the agonizing decisions in a battle, the moments of tension before a big choice, that we're forced to sit through. Games make you earn those big emotional payoffs by living through the build-up. We've seen TV try to mimic this interactivity. Black Mirror Bandersnatch let viewers make decisions for the protagonist, but it ultimately felt hollow. The format's limited runtime meant viewers couldn't truly inhabit Stefan's mindset, even as the show tried to force depth into this connection. His choices felt predetermined by writers rather than emerging organically from character development. It goes even further than this though, as games also give you space in something TV rarely does. Quiet moments to reflect on the weight of those choices. Life is Strange is full of what I'll politely call moments of calm. Scenes where you can sit Max down, put on her earbuds, and just exist in the world while music plays. I remember everyone who knew the game fell in love with his easy listening indie playlists. Cringy, sure, but these moments were a breath heaved not by stepping away from the game, but by us, the player, intangibly relaxing at Max's side. Similarly, in Baldur's Gate 3, the long rest mechanic creates natural pauses in the journey. Your party makes camp, talks around the fire, and advances their personal storylines. These aren't cutscenes you skip, they're vital moments of character and relationship development that make the high-stakes moments actually matter. These moments are, of course, visually stunning, but they're more so necessary. They give space to process what happened, to sit with emotions before moving forward. TV rarely trusts us with silence. It fills every moment with plot, afraid we'll change the channel and they'll lose ad revenue. But games understand that responsibility carries emotional weight, and that weight needs moments of quiet reflection to be fully processed. And it's not just our actions that games let us process differently. They also give us access to the inner workings of characters' minds in ways that television simply can't match. For example, games like Disco Elysium and Persona 3 are essentially about character psychology. They make us live inside them, transforming abstract mental processes into tangible moments that we choose how to navigate. In Disco Elysium, your skills are voices in your head with distinct personalities that argue, advise, and sometimes sabotage you. The game destroys your sense of self, turning internalization into a matter of choosing to listen to the voices, rather than accepting that these voices are our voices and as such can be disregarded or ignored. When you've got high empathy, it's like having an emotional radar that picks up when someone's joy feels off, like they're hiding something darker. Authority is that voice urging you to establish dominance in the room. You find yourself yielding to its demands where even a kid's eye roll feels like an insult needing correction. Electrochemistry is your inner party animal, whispering about the bottle on the shelf. The higher it gets, the more it dominates your thoughts until you're eyeing substances and people with equal hunger. The game's thought cabinet system lets you internalize ideas, political ideologies to personal backstories that permanently alter your character's worldview. Your amnestic detective is solving a murder, he's also reconstructing his shattered identity through interactions, intrusive thoughts, and failure. Persona 3, on the other hand, approaches mental landscapes through connections rather than fragmentation. Its social link system turns relationships into your source of power. Unlike TV shows where friendships feel instantaneous, here they're a central mechanic that must be nurtured. Shared activities or heart-to-heart conversations strengthen your bonds, shown through these satisfying golden notes that appear when you say just the right thing. This system mechanically reinforces the game's personas, manifestations of your psyche, to grow stronger when you invest time in relationships matching their arcana. Your power correlates to these connections. The deeper they are, the more powerful you are. Both games transform psychology into systems we actively navigate within the game. Typically, TV shows a character's inner conflict through monologues or dream sequences, while games insert us into that struggle, wrestling with uncertainties, contradictions, and inevitable failures that cause us to become attached to the characters and their narratives. That's another huge psychological difference. Failure. TV narratives typically treat failure as a detour on the way to inevitable success. But games understand that failure can be the most meaningful part of a story. In Disco Elysium, failed skill checks don't end your story. They create new narrative branches. It's very rare you die, and almost every plot line has multiple solutions. You can fail, die sure, but for the most part, failing a role just means you have to work around the consequences, which are usually hilarious. This failing forward allows stories to feel alive, relatable. We don't always succeed, our flaws and failures shape us perhaps more than the victories. Persona 3 embodies this principle through its entire cast. Junpei struggles with feelings of inferiority until he hits emotional rock bottom. Mitsuru remains emotionally distant until her father's death breaks her. Each character fails, sometimes catastrophically, before they can grow. The game's social link system rewards persistence through clumsy, sometimes undesirable interactions. Your progress is messy, awkward, punctuated by setbacks, like real relationships. In both games, failure is often the point. Character flaws float on the surface in TV, existing to attract viewers, but ultimately overcome by the finale. Games have stories that emerge in how characters respond to failure, adapt to it, and grow through it. A lesson that becomes even more powerful when we're asked to justify morally complex choices that might be otherwise unforgivable. The Last of Us Part 2 divided players like few games before it. Some hated it, some loved it, but everyone felt something. By making you play as both Ellie and Abby, two characters on opposite sides of a revenge story, the game forces you to decide who is justified by emotional attachment rather than an outsider's analysis of the character's actions and impacts. We loved Joel in the first game because he was our protagonist. We justified his actions, including massacring hospital staff to save Ellie, because we were emotionally invested in him. We don't think of who his victims were or what their families will feel because they're evil. Part 2 challenges that attachment by showing the consequences of those actions through the eyes of those he's hurt. It's one thing to watch characters make morally complex decisions, it's another entirely to be complicit in them. Death Stranding approaches moral justification through a protagonist who never wanted to be a hero. Sam Porter Bridges, who can die and return, is manipulated into reconnecting America through a web of familial obligation, technological coercion, and exploitation of his unique abilities. Yet we justify Sam's actions and our own as players despite his clear reluctance. We accept the manipulation because we believe in the larger mission of reconnection, or because we're drawn into the mystery of his sister Amelie, or simply because the game keeps us walking forward. This is betrayed when Sam discovers Amelie orchestrated everything to destroy all life on Earth. We've justified hours of, and I seriously love this game, but hours of walking, laying highways, and using our ways to immobilize enemies for a cause that was fundamentally corrupt from the start. Yet most players continue to the end, convincing Amelie not to trigger the last stranding, saving humanity while losing her forever. We justified this bittersweet outcome as the best possible result, much as Sam eventually justified his forced participation as worthwhile for the sake of Lou, who becomes his surrogate child. In games like Death Stranding, we can see how close to the idealized version of TV that games can become. The mocap performances, cinematic shots, and meticulous design sound engineering blur the line between mediums. The cast includes huge stars like Norman Reedus, Mads Mikkelsen, and Lea Seydoux, delivering performances as nuanced as any multi-$100 million HBO production. This applies to all the games I've mentioned. Being digitally rendered, spectacular visuals are a big draw of the experience. The Last of Us' toppled cities, Disco Elysium's distinct art style, Persona 3's stylized Persona summons, they're all visually striking in unique ways. But in an era where we'll spend dozens of hours mentally and physically engaged with these games, amazing visuals alone do not cut it. TV can often substitute spectacle for meaningful moral complexity. Think of shows that rely on shocking deaths or plot twists rather than earned emotional moments. Games, however, understand that spectacle must serve the underlying drawn-out emotional experience. Death Stranding's landscapes wouldn't resonate without the hours we spend figuring out how to traverse them. The Last of Us Part 2's brutal violence wouldn't matter if we weren't forced to participate from conflicting perspectives. Spectacle in games isn't something we watch. We justify it through our continued participation, making the moral weight of these stories feel profoundly more similar to first-hand experiences. And that's what it really comes down to. These emotional moments in games aren't handed to us. They are earned through our investment of moral responsibility, time, and yes, even our failures. The payoff feels different from TV because we've worked for it every step of the way. There's not any such satisfaction as completing a video game. It's a mix of feeling like a storyteller, a warrior, a friend, and when we get too close to the characters or the world, like we're leaving a part of ourselves behind. I can't quite say the same for the vast majority of TV shows I've finished. On the rare occasion, yeah, but it's been a while since I actively and positively thought about a show's storylines weeks or even years after it's over. Usually I just move on. That's because games build towards feelings gradually, making you work for the tears and the triumphs through countless hours of active participation. In Life is Strange, consequences can reach far into the future. Early choices might seem inconsequential until they return an episode or two later with devastating impact. And if Max doesn't have the energy to rewind, you're stuck with those consequences. Disco Elysium slow burns earned emotion as Harry begins as a blank slate that takes time and effort to understand. If you choose to delve into the backstory of his ex Dora, you aren't told he's heartbroken. You live through his self-destruction and slowly unearth the reason. No matter which ending you reach, it results from the emotional path you've chosen. Perhaps no game embodies this quite like Persona 3. Each day you decide who to spend time with, which bonds to strengthen, what kind of person to become. The game's commitment to its Memento Mori theme runs through even game mechanics like the gun-like evoker pressed to characters' heads to summon personas, or the calendar system counting down your limited days. The game suggests that our limited time is precisely what makes our choices and connections meaningful. So when Makoto closes his eyes for the final time, it hits different, and players naturally ask if he can be saved. His death is sad because after all the battles and shared events with other players, he's an extension of yourself. This emotional resonance doesn't happen overnight, and that brings me to the biggest difference between games and TV. Time. The average TV show delivers 10 to 20 hours of content per season. Most games start at 20 hours and can extend into hundreds. Yet this point doesn't stop at quantity. It's about the quality of that time. Unlike streaming Netflix, where you only occasionally have to confirm you're still awake, games require physical attention, decision-making, and emotional investment, or nothing happens. Baldur's Gate 3's turn-based mechanics are the antithesis of brain rot and dopamine loops. They make you slow down, think, plan, and commit. There's no tanking and rushing, no brute forcing your way through the story like choking down a slice of cake and deciding you need 3 more because the first slice hasn't reached your stomach yet. In Death Stranding, the first hours are a slog, a glorified mail delivery simulator. But by hour 25, that earlier struggle makes your mastery of the terrain deeply satisfying. Suddenly zooming across previously impassable mountains on your bike or along a zip line makes you appreciate each step you've taken to gain these conveniences. And maybe that's why gaming communities form such deep bonds around these shared experiences. We're not just discussing plot points, we're comparing choices we made, sharing strategies we've developed, and processing emotions we earned together. Look, I'm not saying TV can't create meaningful stories or emotional connections. Shows like Severance, Succession, and The Traitors give me hope. But whether it's living polarizing moral choices in The Last of Us, personifying our inner voices like in Disco Elysium, or finding quiet comfort in a Life is Strange bus ride, these experiences become part of us precisely because we've lived them rather than observed them. They don't always end happily, but they change us in ways passive media can't. TV shows me someone else's tears, but games make me responsible for them. And in that responsibility, we've created something that feels profoundly real, even when it's just pixels on a screen. If you enjoyed this exploration of why games do what TV can't, check out some of my other videos. And when you're choosing between watching stories or living them, Ditto. That's why I'm Pickle Ditto. Because whatever storytelling pickle you're in, I've probably been there too.